If you want to become rich, you have to strike it rich with Michael Barrymore, the man with all the cash. And all the right moves. Michael Barrymore's Strike It Rich, Thursday at 8:30 on Granada. Tomorrow sees the kickoff of Granada's new look early evening lineup. Granada Tonight moves to its new regular slot at 6, and that's followed at 6:30 by The Footy Show, an offbeat look at the region's soccer scene presented by Trevor Ward. 60 Minutes at 6, tomorrow on Granada.
The South Bank Show in just over 10 minutes returns with a profile of Humphrey Bogart. First, the national and world news from ITN.
From the studios of ITN, the news with Nicholas Owen.
Good evening, welcome to the programme. Tonight's headlines: Major attacks Labour and Liberal Democrat voting plans as profoundly dangerous. Prince Charles's bumpy ride as an opinion poll forecasts the end of the monarchy. And the Beckham goal that helped keep alive Manchester United's cup hopes. John Major launched a ferocious attack on Labour and the Liberal Democrats today after it emerged that they were close to agreeing plans to change the way Britain is governed. But Mr Major refused to comment on allegations that the Tory MP Jerry Hayes had a sexual relationship with a young man. Mr Hayes has denied the story. Here's our political correspondent Hugh Pym.
For John Major, there was a convenient target to aim at, with reports that Labour and the Liberal Democrats were close to a deal on constitutional measures. It can only lead, he said, to the breakup of the UK.
I think it is very dangerous. It is certainly going to be a substantive part of their secret discussions, of that I've no doubt. And I believe the impact upon the United Kingdom will be thoroughly bad.
Labour and the Lib Dems have worked together in certain areas over the past year. On issues like reform of the Lords and devolution, a joint committee is now negotiating a programme for government.
The talks are going ahead. They're important talks. They're the fulfilment of a 4-year dream that I had when I first launched the idea of cooperative politics, and I'm glad that Labour has responded to that. They're taking place in an amicable and constructive atmosphere.
As for newspaper reports about Tory MP Jerry Hayes, the Prime Minister wouldn't be drawn. Mr Hayes said he'd had a friendship with a young man, but denied allegations of a sexual relationship. There was no sign of him or his wife and children at their home today. John Major denied that his new emphasis on the family had been undermined, like his earlier Back to Basics campaign. That, he said, wasn't meant to be about sexual morality, but Labour were quick to link the two.
Well, Back to Basics did end in tears in that very way, didn't it? Where sexual morality dominated most of the argument about Back to Basics. And one feels that somehow the family is presented in that context, though I welcome the fact the Prime Minister says that it doesn't. But many of the signs are beginning to appear again, aren't they?
And the pre-election skirmishes will continue with the launch of the Tories' latest poster campaign tomorrow. It's clear Mr Major wants to put himself right at the cutting edge of the Conservative campaign. He hasn't ruled out the idea of a live television debate with his opponents, and he's promised regular personal appearances at press conferences starting this week, at which there'll no doubt be many more attacks on Labour and the Liberal Democrats over constitutional reform. Hugh Pym, ITN, Westminster.
Pro-democracy demonstrators in Serbia brought Belgrade to a standstill today with a huge traffic jam. It was the 49th consecutive day of protests against President Milosevic. And tonight there are signs that even parts of the army may be turning against him, as Colin Baker reports from Belgrade.
It is the sound which tells President Milosevic tonight what he may already have guessed, that he cannot rely on his army to support him in his fight to keep power. This is one of Belgrade's biggest military housing estates, and those noisily protesting are Yugoslav army officers, soldiers and their families. They are for the first time demonstrating against their commander-in-chief. The embattled president also lost control of his capital's streets for 2 hours this afternoon. Pro-democracy supporters organised a mass traffic jam, and the police forces mobilised by the president to keep the streets open found themselves confined to buses which couldn't move. This is a humiliation for President Milosevic. The special police forces have been outfought and outflanked. The people are marching, the city is blockaded. The choices for the president have fast diminished. Now the only options seem compromise or confrontation. Colin Baker, ITN, Belgrade.
An opinion poll today shows that almost half the population don't think the monarchy will survive another 50 years. The poll, commissioned for an ITV programme on Tuesday, also found that 46% thought Prince Charles would make a good king, but that compares with 82% 5 years ago. He's on holiday in Cloisters. From there, Robert Hall reports.
One for the family album. Prince Charles and his youngest son making a final appearance for the cameras after 5 days of rare access during this private holiday. A chance to forget royal controversy, but the results of next week's Mori poll may give the prince more to grimace about. Out of 1,800 people asked, will there be a monarchy in 50 years' time, 48% thought there wouldn't, 33% that there would. On the question, will Prince Charles make a good or bad king, 46% said good, 36% bad. Whilst accepting damage done to the royal family in recent years, Buckingham Palace is playing down the findings, preferring to look forwards rather than reflecting on the past. The Prince is a keen supporter of that strategy, his relaxed approach in Cloisters a clear sign of wider initiatives. Images like these are a beginning, but today's figures suggest the British public are about to give the Prince and his family another uncomfortable ride. Robert Hall, ITN, Cloisters.
4 prison officers are still being held hostage at a jail in Dublin tonight. They were seized by 6 inmates yesterday evening. John Draper reports from Dublin.
It's now 24 hours since the siege began at Mountjoy Jail. The 4 prison officers being held hostage in the segregation unit have apparently not been harmed. Negotiations to bring the standoff to a peaceful conclusion are continuing. Irish police stood guard throughout the day, but it's the prison governor and a Justice Department official who are holding talks with the 6 inmates. They're armed with iron bars and blood-filled syringes. The unit's been used in the past to hold prisoners with AIDS. The gang are complaining about conditions in the jail built under British rule and allege mistreatment. One remand prisoner is protesting his innocence in connection with the murder of journalist Veronica Guerin. The prison authorities are determined that if at all possible they'll end this siege without violence. Uppermost in their minds is the safety of the prison officers being held. As the standoff enters its second night, the authorities say the negotiations will continue for as long as necessary. John Draper, ITN, Dublin.
And within the last few minutes, the Scottish Prison Service has said 2 members of staff are being held hostage by 3 inmates at Glenachill Jail. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said today that some progress was made when he met the Palestinian President Yasser Arafat last night. They talked about the future of the West Bank town of Hebron, but couldn't agree a deal. Here's our Middle East correspondent Robert Moore.
Tonight, the Israeli Prime Minister's office in Jerusalem is giving no information about the summit. All that is known is that Benjamin Netanyahu and Yasser Arafat met in total secrecy through the night, talking until well past dawn, searching for the elusive breakthrough. Both sides reported some progress, but to the intense frustration of the American mediator, there is no sign of the final agreement.
How the negotiations?
Still working.
But at least Jewish settlers today appeared to be backing down from their confrontation with the Israeli government, removing the mobile homes they had illegally set up on disputed West Bank land. But they are still vowing to challenge any weakening of Israel's military grip on the West Bank and warn that handing Hebron to the Palestinians will be a disaster for the Jewish people. Shuttle diplomacy and now secret diplomacy have both failed to produce a breakthrough. There is an overwhelming sense of fatigue, lifted only slightly tonight by Netanyahu's cryptic comment telling the Israeli people to prepare for a big surprise in the peace process. Robert Moore, ITN, Jerusalem.
Football, First Division Charlton just managed to stay in the FA Cup competition with a late equaliser against Newcastle this afternoon. And in the day's big tie at Old Trafford, the cup holders Manchester United beat Spurs 2-0. Gareth Furby reports.
Tottenham came to Old Trafford weakened by injury, but United had to work hard, their first only coming in the second half from Paul Scholes. In the next minute, Spurs missed a chance to equalise, Allen slicing wide. But the FA Cup holders secured their place in the next round with this stunning free kick from David Beckham. United will now face either Crewe or Wimbledon at home. At their home ground, Charlton were hoping to upset Newcastle, and along with their fans were convinced this deserved a penalty. Newton pulled up by Beresford, but the referee turned away. It must have unsettled Charlton because just 2 minutes later Newcastle had taken the lead off a second attempt from Robert Lee, a former Charlton player. But the Londoners were saved by Mark Kinsella, his equaliser coming in the closing minutes, booking them a replay at St James's Park in 10 days' time. Gareth Furby, ITN.
Tennis, Britain's Tim Henman lost to the American Jim Courier in the final of the Qatar Open today. Henman fought bravely, forcing the former world #1 to a tiebreak in the second set.
That's terrific play.
But in the end, Courier won 7-5, 6-7, 6-2. That's it from us this evening. From the Weekend News team here, goodbye.
Good evening. Now, the weather might be staying settled over the next few days, but it doesn't mean much of an improvement because it's staying cold and frosty. And we're sharing these sorts of conditions with much of the continent at the moment, all enduring a pretty bitter winter, really. Northern Europe maintaining temperatures sub-zero. Now, it's a little bit warmer over the Mediterranean, but they're paying for these milder temperatures here with a low pressure, and that's continuing the wet winter they've had so far. By contrast, though, closer to home tonight, it's going to be mostly dry. Just a few flurries of snow in the east, but a really cold one again, temperatures as low as -6 in some of the Scottish glens. Now, it's here that we'll see patches of freezing fog forming before tomorrow morning, and they'll be really slow to clear through the day tomorrow, if at all. Elsewhere, though, more in the way of dry, bright weather and some sunshine again, especially for the west. Further east, 1 or 2 flurries of snow again, but they really won't amount to much. In fact, falling mostly as sleet and rain nearer to the coasts. But another really cold one again tomorrow. Temperatures won't get much above freezing where there's still snow cover, and at best only 4. That's it from me. Have a very good night.
Power Gen, generating electricity whatever the weather.
She knows her stuff, she's a proven journalist with a track record, and she can ask a question.
GMTV it's a unique place to work. It's a unique programme to watch. It blends fun, entertainment, it blends information and news, waking people up with a smile. It's a vital mix.
Fiona Phillips will make this job her own, because at the end of the day, people like it.
Hi, I'm Lucy Meacock. Join me tomorrow for a new look at Tea Time with 60 Minutes at 6. In Granada tonight, we're launching a brand new Where's Fred competition. The answer could win you a trip to Holland, and you won't have to go Dutch. Also, catch up on all the soccer action with Trevor Ward in a brand new programme called The Footy.
Stay with us for the South Bank Show is next. Tonight, looking at Hollywood legend Humphrey Bogart.